Seconds.
Shall we start, Binduji?
Yep.
Okay. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing classes offered by Binduji are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective. We are on chapter 3. The replays of all the rooms and other talks from Binduji's collections are available on 3 different sources cited in the chat. One is YouTube. The channel is called Advaita Retold. And then there is an Apple podcast and a Spotify link also provided. There is also a book published by Artemisia, authored by Artemisia, based on Binduji's insights into Advaita in the earlier discussions. For housekeeping, I'll close the chat and hand raising when Binduji is conducting the class. And we'll open up those channels for discussions after the talk. Over to you, Binduji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. Hari Om and Namaste to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamshi Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Beda Vipagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunyvandi Divyai Stavai Vedai Sangapada-kramo Vanishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na Vidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Oh. So we saw Krishna saying, Name Parthasya Kartavyam Trishu Lokeshu Kinchana Na Anavaktam Aptavyam Varta Evacha Karmani. It is the typical experience of the supreme knower, or one who has identified himself with Brahman. Now, Kartavyam, something to be done, Trishu Lokeshu, in the 3 worlds, Kinchana, whatsoever. So that Kartavyata is born out of doership. If I have a doership, then I will have things to be done. But when I don't have a doership, there is no Kartavyam. Not only that, it is not only the doership or enjoyership which is not there, is identification with everything. The whole creation is nothing but Brahman. When that knowledge is an experience of a jnani, there is nothing other than him, nothing separate from him, or which makes it obtained, unobtained, everything non-existent. Now that, when he made the statement, Arjuna would have understood what it is meant, nor are we in a position to understand what is that with which Krishna is making that statement. He is not making the statement as Brahman or Atman. He is making the statement from the standpoint that he is the knower of Brahman and Atma. Not as separate from the knower and the Brahman, but as one and the same. That is why the second line is more important than the first one. The first one is doing away with the doership and enjoyership. But when he says that there is nothing to be obtained which is not already obtained, is the state of a jnani or a brahmanishta, brahmasthiti, which Krishna was talking about when he was talking about the sthita prajna, brahmi sthiti. So when it is there and making statement like there is nothing to be achieved which is not achieved already, the question can come, then why are you living, or why are you, continuing to do things which you are doing as if, it is being observed by Arjuna, or we see the jnanis doing. They are doing pujas, sometimes they are pravachan, sometimes they are doing teachings. All of the activities we are seeing in different jnanis. So why are they doing it? The verses from 23 onwards, Krishna is giving justification for that. And at the 26th verse, he is also bringing restrictions for their actions also. There is both ways that he should act in the world, but at the same time, that action should be also with care. So we saw that when he said, Yadi hi aham na varteyam jadu karmani atindrataha mama vartma anuvartande manushya partha sarvashaha. So when he said that in the 23rd verse, he is giving the condition when if you think that then why am I working? Why am I seen acting in this world? I should be sitting, withdrawn from the engagement with the world. That is what is he now saying, that option is not there for a jnani. Because mama vartma anuvartande. When people look upon to a jnani, not only what he is giving as advice or teaching, the tendency for ordinary human beings like us is to imitate or learn from the way in which they conduct their life. So what happens is that we look upon such people as models. And that is the reason why their action also is equally important. From their point of view, they are not acting. Doesn't mean they are free to do anything. They have a responsibility to loka sangraha, the maintenance of dharma and moral values in the society. Continuing that, in the 24th verse, Krishna is saying, Utsideyuhu ime lokaha na kuryam karma chedaham sankarasya cha karta syam upahanyam ima prajaha. So this is a proposition and answers to that. If I were not to perform action, chet aham karma na kuryam. If I were not to perform actions, because I have known Brahman, there is no doership, no enjoyership. So the option of not performing action is not only that it is not there, but he doesn't even feel the necessity or he doesn't identify himself as a doer. When he is identifying as a non-doer, the chances are that he may be oblivion or he may be in the Atmarati, Atmatrupta, Atma, that state, forgetting to be engaged in the world outside with his instruments of Sharira, etc. Therefore, the question comes, if I were not to perform. That option is not there, but assuming that if I am not to doing anything, then what happens? Ime lokaha utsidiyuhu. This whole world will collapse. Utsidiyuhu means collapse. Will collapse. Why does he say so? Because those who are looking up to him, seeing him inactive, they feel that to remain inactive is the right approach to moksha or the knowledge. The second condition is that which is getting answered is that Sankarasya karta syam. When he is not being a exemplar or giving the way in which duties have to be performed, the dharma aspect of the society will collapse. And when the dharma aspect of the society collapses, I would be the maker of Sankaraha, confounding order or the dharma. Sankarasya karta, syam, aham syam. I would be the maker of the Sankara. Sankara means confounding order in the performance of duty. And there is a third aspect also. Ime prajaha upahanyam. Upahanyam means destroyer or I will destroy. Ime prajaha. I might be destroying these creatures. How? When they are not doing any action, they are not bound by the moral duties, etc. And the confounding of dharma, adharma happens. There will be no order in the society and everything will be acceptable. Violence becomes the normal living habit. And the violence will annihilate these praja. So these three consequences escalate in moral gravity from the cosmic collapse to social disorder, Sankara, and to direct destruction of the beings. Building a comprehensive case for the necessity of Krishna's continued action. So, When the three things are to be understood, first, we have the consequences hypothetical to a divine inaction. It is a divine inaction because he is a Lord himself. What are the three things which will happen? The destruction of the world, Sankaraha, and the death of the creatures. They are operating at three distinct levels in the cosmic order simultaneously. The Utsidayuhu operates at the Adi Bhautika level. The physical and cosmic order sustained by the Yajna Chakra of rain, food and life, etc. The Sankara operates at the Dhyatmika level and the Adi Bhautika level, social level, the normative order of the Varna and Ashrama channels human activity toward Dharma and ultimately Moksha. Whereas Upahana of Praja operates at the most immediate and concrete level, actual destruction of living beings. Together they constitute the complete account of catastrophe or apocalypse. That would follow the abandonment of dharmic actions by the supreme pramana. The second explanation Shankaracharya reads is the Sankarasya Kartasyam as the most morally charged phrase in this verse. Krishna as a Jagat Karta, maker of this world, would become Sankara Karta instead of Jagat Karta. Instead of making the cosmic order, he will be a creator of disorder. This reversal of role from a sustainer to a destroyer of order is deliberately evoked to reveal the absolute necessity of Ishvara's cosmic activity. Shankaracharya notes that this is not merely a theoretical possibility but a dharma shastriya verdict. That is, the dharma as ordered by the Shastra. Inaction by the responsible party constitutes the moral causation of the disorder that results in Lord's Kartrutva in Sankara. It's not merely metaphorical. Therefore, Shankaracharya connects Sankara here with Arjuna's own fear of Varna Sankara, which he started in the chapter 1. If I do the war, men will be dying and women will be without men, and there can be a mixing up of Sankara or mixing up of Varnas from the point of view of different Varnas. Arjuna had refused to fight precisely because he feared the Varna Sankara would result from the destruction of family and dharma. The Lord or the Krishna now inverts the argument with the devastating precision. It is precisely the reason Arjuna's inaction, following Krishna's hypothetical inaction as pramana, that would produce Sankara. I am reading it again. Krishna is now inverting the argument with devastating precision. It is precisely Arjuna's inaction, following Krishna's hypothetical inaction as pramana, that would produce Sankara. That is, Krishna, if he had not done his karma, of advising Arjuna or the people like Arjuna, all of us through the Gita, we will be misguided by our imagination that if I do these things, certain things, or we do certain things, or Arjuna does certain things, then that will create an adharma and a sankara. A warrior king who abandons his Kshatriya dharma creates sankara he feared. Therefore, the warrior king who performs his duty prevents it, is what Krishna's answer is. The entire Loka Sangraha argument is thus also a direct refutation of Arjuna's original reasoning for the Sankara in the chapter 1. But how did Krishna say Ima Praja Upahanyam? How did Krishna say that I will be annihilating these creations? The ultimate expression of Ishvara's Karuna, divine compassion, operating through the logic of Loka Sangraha. This is what Shankaracharya is now explaining. Krishna who acts is the protector of Praja. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the protector, and Shiva is the annihilator. Srishti Sthiti Laya. The Lord who creates the act becomes the destroyer if he doesn't act. If that means if he doesn't protect the Praja, then he becomes the destroyer or letting them die if they are not protected. This is not a threat, but a revelation of the structure of caring. To genuinely care for being, Bhuta Hita, is necessarily to act for their welfare. The withdrawal from action, however, philosophically motivated, constitutes a withdrawal of care that has real and devastating consequences for those who depend upon the pramana of the great for their dharmic orientation. Shankaracharya reads this as the final and most powerful motivation for a jnani's continued action. Not the absence of moksha or the presence of karyata, but karuna, the compassion, that cannot witness the suffering of the ajnanis without responding with compassionate activity for their benefit and protection. We will find a verse which is coming in the next couple of verses, where how Krishna advises what is to be done and what is not to be done for showing this compassion to the Ajnanis. The Bhashya reading is Uchchediyuhu Vinasheyuhu Ime Sarve Lokaha. These entire worlds would perish, they would collapse. Socially and ethically. Dharma would cease, discipline would vanish, society would disintegrate. This destruction of world means collapse of the social order. Lokasthithi nimittasya karmanaha abhavat na kuryam karma chet aham. If I did not perform the action that is the cause of the maintenance of the world, that is the lokasthiti nimitta karma, action necessary for sustaining the social order in the society. What are they? They include governance, protection of dharma, fulfillment of roles, etc. Then there is danger of varna sangraha can happen. Kimcha sankarasya cha karta syam. Therefore, I will become the cause for the confusion of sankara. Shankaracharya interprets Sankara as the disorder of social roles, breakdown of dharmic structures. This will happen when leaders abandon their duty. Mainly, people imitate them. That will not happen, and they may imitate in the wrong way. Obligations will collapse because if the great people, leaders, do not show the example of obligations being upheld, others may also follow, and thereby the collapse of obligation will take place. Ethical confusion can spread because what is ethical, what is moral cannot be decided by the Ajnanis. Thus the Lord will become responsible for this disorder. Not only that, harm to living beings. Tena karanena upahanyam ima praja. By that cause, by all these things which I have explained till now, I would destroy these beings. The Lord would become indirectly responsible for suffering of the world. Why? Because his example would lead others to abandon duty, follow indiscipline, collapse moral order. Thus the harm would be systematic because he is a leader whom others would like to follow. The paradox of compassion. Prajanam anugrahaya pravurtaha upahitam upahananam kuryam ityartaha. Though engaged in action for the welfare of beings, what is that I am supposed to be doing? On the contrary, I would cause their destruction. It's a paradox. If Krishna ceased acting, the very beings who seeks his protection would suffer from the social collapse. Thus, continued action becomes a compassionate governance on the part of Krishna. Incompatibility with the divine nature. Mama Ishwarasya Anurupam Apedyata. That would be inconsistent with my nature as a Lord or a benevolent God. Ishvara is the sustainer of the world. To abandon action would contradict that role. He will not be sustaining the role. Thus, the divine action is not motivated by the need to sustain the world, but it is the cosmic responsibility of the Lord. Shankaracharya now introduces the next doctrinal step, which will come in the next verse, which is the ignorant seeker must perform karma yoga. The knower has no personal duty, but the knower acting in the society acts for the loka sangraha. Whereas Ishvara acts for cosmic maintenance. Thereby, Shankaracharya is making a crystal clear distinction between the avatara Krishna Ishvara from a jnani who is acting in the society. The highest action is not a necessity. It is neither a desire, but a compassionate example. The wise act not because they must act, but because their action protects the world. So the next verse before that, Shankaracharya is asking this question. Yadi punaha ahamiva tvam kartartha buddhihi atmavit anyo va tasyapim atmanaha kartavya abhave api paranugraha eva kartavya ityatah. Aha. Yadi punaha aham iva tvam kartartha buddhi atmavit anyeva. If you, however, or any other person, not you or any other person, were like me, having the understanding that the goal is accomplished as the knower of the self, tasyapi atmanaha kartavya bhave api paranugraha eva kartavyaha itya. Even though he has not duty for himself, action for the welfare of others alone is to be performed. For the Atmavit, there is no personal obligation, but action may still arise from the compassion, paranugraha. But these actions does not bind him. He is neither motivated by any gain. He is performed solely for the welfare of the world. Therefore, he says in the 25th verse, Saktaha karmanni vidvamso yada kurvanti bharata. Kuryat vidvams tata asaktas chikirshu loka sangraham. Yada tata. Comparative construction of the words in the sloka. Yada karmani saktaha avidvamsaha kurvanti bharata. O Arjuna, just as the ignorant attached to the fruits of action act, tata, same way, asaktaha loka sangraham chikirshu vidwan kuryat. The wise one, unattached, desirous of accomplishing the welfare of the world, should act. So the desire, asaktaha, loka sangraham chikirshu. The asaktaha is the one which is unattached. But his desire is not from attachment. It is from compassion. Compassion of what? The welfare of the world. And that must be the reason why the jnani, the knower of truth, appears to be acting in this world. This comparison is in the outward action, contrary to the inner disposition and motivation which has been discussed earlier. Here is coming to the practical actions which are being highlighted in this verse. So, Shankaracharya's the most precise formulation for the Advaitic understanding of a jnani's continued action. The comparison does not mean Vidwan acts from the same reasons as an Avidya. Their motivations are diametrically opposed. The comparison is strictly outward context. Both perform Vihita karma, what is to be done in the world for moral duties, etc. Both participate in the dharmic activity. Both appear to be external observers as engaged in persons. From outside, both of them will look as if they are engaged in the activity. But the difference is entirely internal. Asakti versus asaktaha karma. Kama versus karuna. Kartrutva versus abhimana. Abhimana versus akartrutva jnana. That is, asakti versus asaktata. Asakti means desire. Versus asaktata means unattached. Kama versus karuna. Kama means is the longing or deep desires. Versus karuna means compassion. Kartrutva abhimana versus akartrutva jnana. The ignorant ordinary person works with the kartrutva abhimana. I am the doer. Whereas the jnani acts with akartrutva jnana. I am not the doer, yet the doing is being apparently happening. This is the viveka, discrimination that preserves both the freedom of a jnana nishta and the necessity of karma yoga without collapsing them into a single undifferentiated path. For the ajnani, the karma yoga is the means, and the jnani, while in action, is in a state of jnana nishta. The pairing of Vidwan Asakta and Avidwansa Saktata reveal the structural logic of karma bandhana. The jnani is unattached, whereas the avidwan, the ignorant ordinary person, is attached. This reveals the logic behind the bondage of due to karma. Which karma is binding, which karma is not binding. It is not karma that binds, because karma is common for both vidwan and avidwan. Asaktaha hi acharan karma purushaha param apnoti. In the 19th verse, he has clarified that. But asakti is that binding. The asakti or attachment. The vidwan, the jnani, is working with no attachment. Whereas the avidwans or the ordinary person is attached to the action and the fruits of action. The same action performed with asakti produces bandha. When performed with asaktata, produces shuddhi or purity. For the karma yogin or for loka sangraha of the jnani. That is, asakti produces bandha for the karma yogin. Asakti. Whereas asaktata of unattached or non-attachment produces shuddhi or loka sangraha for the jnani. Therefore, Shankara uses this verse to affirm the liberating potential of karma yoga while maintaining jnana alone is the direct means of moksha. The two halves of the verse map precisely onto two distinct paths, saktaha, avidvamsaha. Those who need karma yoga as a sadhana, and asaktaha vidwan, the jnani who acts for the loka sangraha. Chikirshuhu loka sangraham is the most explicit statement in the Gita of a jnani's motivation for action. Chikirshu. It is not karyata, obligation, which moves the vidwan to act or the jnani to act. Because tasya karyam na vidyate, in the 17th verse, for him there is no obligation. It is not the fear of pratyavaya or the sin of omission. Because na akartayana iha kaschana arthaha, in the 18th verse. It is the ichha or the will to accomplish loka sangraha rooted entirely in the karuna or the compassion and entirely free from attachment, asakti. Shankaracharya reads Chikirshu as the desiderative of karuna, the compassionate jnani, who wants to help, not because he must, but because his purnada overflows naturally into care of others. This is the Advaitic account of Jivan Mukta Pravritti. How a Jivan Mukta is seen acting in this world. the spontaneous, compassionate activity of the liberated person in the world. Finally, Shankaracharya notes the rhetorical address of Bharata at the precise midpoint of the verse, between Avidvamsa and Vidwan, as Arjuna is being invited in to identify with the Vidwan rather than the Avidwan. To be a Bharata, a descendant of Dharmaraja lineage, is to be one who acts asakta for Lokasangraha, not one who clings into action and its fruits from the avidya point of view. Therefore, the entire verse thus constitutes a personal appeal to Arjuna to choose the Vidwan's path, even if he has not yet attained the full Atmaretitva. He can act as if he has attained the knowledge or as if he were a Vidwan, with asaktaha and lokasangraha itcha. In doing so, he progressively purifies the antakarana toward the jnana, and that is the ultimate goal. So, saktaha karmanihi anya karmana phalam mama bhavishyati iti kechit avidvamsaha yada kurvanti bharataha kuryat vidwan atmavid tata asaktaha san. Tadvat kimartam karoti tat shrunu chikirshu kartumichuhu loka sangraham. How the ignorant act? Saktaha karmani asya karmanaha phalam mama bhavishyati iti kechit advidvamsa yada kurvanti. Bharata. O Bharata, O Arjuna, some ignorant people act with the attachment to the action, thinking the fruit of this action will belong to me. It is the psychology of the avidwan, phala abhisanti, expectation of results, and mamatva, the sense of mind. Thus the chain, desire triggers action with the expectation and it will result in bondage. This is the samsaric karma of the ignorant person. But then how should the knower act? Uryat vidwan atmabit tada asakta san. Therefore, the knower of the self should act in the same way, actions which is in the same way, but without attachment. The highlight is in the paradox. Externally, the jnani perform actions similar to others, whereas internally, there is no attachment, no expectation, no sense of ownership. Thus, the difference lies not in behavior or in the action, but in the inner understanding. The ignorant acts with attachment while the knower acts without attachment. The ignorant seeks results, whereas the knower has no such seek, or he doesn't go after the results. By doing this with attachment, the ignorant person binds himself in the cycle of karma and the fruit, action and the fruit of action, and action, fruit of action, like that. Whereas the knower of, or a jnani, when he is acting without attachment, he remains absolutely free. But then, why the knower still acts? Tadvat kimartam karoti tat shrunu. Listen to that. This anticipation of a natural question from all of us. If the knower has nothing to gain, no obligation, why should he act at all? Loka sangraha. He is a chikirshu. Chikirshu means kartum ichuhu. Wishing to accomplish. What? Loka sangraha, the maintenance of the world. Shankaracharya explained the knower's action is motivated by compassionate intention. And Loka Sangraha means preserving social order, preventing moral collapse, guiding others through examples. No personal duty. Shankaracharya emphasizes that for the Vidwan there is no personal duty. The wise do not withdraw from the society abruptly or display superiority. Instead, they quietly perform their duties, allowing others to follow naturally. Thus, the Jnani becomes a stabilizing presence in the society. The action of the ignorant is motivated by desire, which binds and are aimed at results. Whereas that of the Jnani, motivated by compassion, does not bind and is aimed at Loka Sangraha. Thus, Advaita preserves both the inner renunciation and the outer participation when necessary. Therefore, the next verse introduces one of the most refined teachings of Bhagavad Gita. The Jnani must not disturb the understanding of the ignorant, even if he knows the truth is non-doership. This doctrine is the spiritual pedagogy. Evam loka sangraham chikirshoho na mama atmavidaha kartavyam asti anyasya va loka sangraham muktva tataha tasya atmavidaha ityum idam upadishyate. Thus, the knower of the self, there is no duty to perform action except for the sake of Loka Sangraha. Therefore, this instruction is given to that knower of the self. Na buddhivedam janayed ajnanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidwan yukta samacharan. This is a very important thing to be understood. Na ajnanam karma sanginam buddhivedam janayed. The Jnani should not generate disturbance in the understanding of the ignorant who are attached to action. Even though he knows that even the Jnani has no doership and enjoyership, he should not generate a disturbance in the understanding of the ignorant because he is attached to the desires, attached to the fruits of action. Vidwan yukta samacharan sarva karmani joshayet. The wise one engaged in action himself, properly performing actions, should cause the ignorant to be engaged in all actions. It may appear to be, what is this contrast? Krishna is advising Arjuna now. Na buddhivedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidwans yukta samacharan. But the two prescriptions are complementary. The first is a prohibited, na janayed. The second is prescriptive, joshayed. It is prescriptive. First one is prohibitive, first line, where the second one is prescription. Together they define the Vidwan's relationship to an Ajnani in the domain of dharmic action. Because the Vidwan is interested in the Loka Sangraha. He is not in the interest of, the moral doership and non-doership aspects of the Ajnani and confuse him with that, as long as he is attached to the fruits of action. That is why Shankaracharya's commentary of this verse addresses one of the most delicate practical questions in Advaita. What is the relationship between Jnani and the unqualified majority of us? First, Buddhi Veda is for Shankaracharya the central danger that this verse is safeguarding against. The specific form of Buddhi Veda in the question is Adhikari Bhramsha, Adhikara Bhramsha. Fall from one's proper Adhikara. If Ajnanin observes the Jnanin acting without visible attachment to the prescribed duties or apparently transcending the conventional karma, he may conclude that if the wise one does not perform these actions, why should I? Natural question. And abandon his karma yoga sadhana without having attained the jnana, that would make such abandonment a genuine and liberating, which its jnana will be liberating and genuinely liberating. The result is Naishkarmya of the true actionless of the jnani. But simply the karma pratyaga, karma parityaga without jnana, which the Lord has already condemned as mithyachara in the sixth verse, and mogam partasa jivati in 16th verse. The Vidwan bears direct responsibility for preventing this catastrophe of confusion from happening. Confusion, when it is taking place, the easy route the ignorant people will normally take is to follow the jnanis or the knowledgeable person who is an example. And that person, if he is not doing any action and he is remaining as Atmarati, Atmadrupta without doing any action, karma in the world, the ignorant will jump to it because he will say that this is what he is supposed to be doing. He has knowledge because he is not doing any action. So I will also have the knowledge if I don't do act. Let me also sit, which has been very clearly mentioned in the 6th verse as mithyachara. He is a hypocrite. And mogha sajivati. He is leading a delusional life if he does that. So therefore Shankaracharya reads the contrast between na janayet buddhi vedam and joshayet sarva karmani as defining Vidwan's positive pedagogical responsibility. It is not enough for the jnani merely to refrain from disturbing the jnani, but he must actively encourage, support, continued engagement in the vihita karmas, prescribed actions. That is why the word joshayet is a genuine vidhi, a prescription to actively foster the ajnani, his commitment to his sadhana. Shankaracharya reads this as a practical expression of loka sangraha. The jnani's compassionate engagement does not consist merely in philosophical teaching, jnana upadesha, but in the very practical support of dharmic contact among those who are not yet qualified for jnana. So that is why ajnanam karma sanginam, the ignorant people who are attached to the action, such people's intelligence or should not be pushed into delusion that, there is no kartrutva, no bhoktrutva, there is no doership nor enjoyership. The third point is pairing of the words yukta and samachara. In the second half is the key to the Vidwan's method of loka sangraha. Vidwan does not encourage the ajnanis through mere words or abstract exhaustion. He encouraged them through example, samachara, combined with inner steadiness, yuktaha. He by himself performing all vihita karma properly and completely while remaining inwardly established in the Atma-jnana. The Vidwan provides the living pramana, which was told in the 21st verse that he is a pramanam kurute, lokas tadanuvartate. That makes karma yoga credible and attractive to the ajnanis. Therefore, Shankaracharya connects samacharan and yuktaha, that is proper, complete and in accordance with the Shastra. Therefore, the Vidwan's own acharana or the actions must be reproachable as the foundation of his encouragement of others. Finally, Shankaracharya uses this verse to address directly the charge that Advaitic teaching of Jnana Nishta as the sole path to moksha, which undermines the social and moral order by devaluating karma. His response is precise. The jnanin does not devalue karma for the ajnanin. On the contrary, he actively supports it through example and encouragement. What the Advaitic teaching rejects is not karma for karmadhikarin, but the samuchaya, the mandatory combination between karma and jnana for everyone, which would both philosophically incoherent, since jnana removes the very kartrutva that makes karma possible, and practically harmful, since it would deprive the ajnanins of their proper sadhana while falsely suggesting jnanins that their moksha is incomplete without continued ritual performance. So both these aspects we are together. Why it is harmful? It would deprive the ajnanins of their proper sadhana, while falsely suggesting to the jnani that their moksha is incomplete without continued performance in the action, ritual, dharma actions. The Vidwan who acts for Loka Sangraha thus embodies the perfect Advaitic resolution. Jnana within, karma without. Atmani samsishtaha lokaya karmani kurvan samacharan. So, what is Buddhi Veda? Shankaracharya's commentary, we are now going through that. The division, disturbance of understanding is called the Buddhi Veda. Buddhi means the conviction, guiding action. Veda means disturbance or division. So unsettling one person's established conviction about duty, he is now confused whether he should perform his duty or he should follow a quietly sitting jnani. The ignorant person conviction. Maya idam kartavyam bhoktavyam cha asya karmanaha phalam. Iti nischaya rupadaya buddhehe vedanam chalanam buddhi veda. Disturbing the firm conviction. This action must be done by me and I shall enjoy its fruits. That disturbance is called Buddhi Veda. It is the psychology of karma adhikari. The ignorant person thinks that I am the doer, this duty is mine, and I will obtain this fruit. And this sustains his motivation for action. If this belief collapses prematurely before he is matured, Chitta Shuddhi, the action may cease, discipline may collapse, and chaos may follow. Therefore, the wise should not disturb this. Tam na janayed na utpadayed ajnanam avivekinam karma sanginam karmani asaktanam asanga vatam. The wise should not produce such disturbance in the ignorant, the discriminating, the undiscriminating, ignorant, the undiscriminating, those who are attached to action. So the ignorants are categorized as avivekinaha, those who lack discrimination. Not only that, they are attached to action, karma sanginaha. They are asaktaha, not asaktaha. Asaktaha and asaktaha are different. Asaktaha means unattached, whereas asaktaha is psychologically invested in their duties. So if the ajnani is prematurely told, you are not the doer, they may misunderstand and abandon duty. Thus the doctrine of non-doership must be introduced carefully at the adhikari level when they are fit for that knowledge. Then what should the wise do in that place? Kim nu kuryat. Joshayet karyayet sarva karmani. As an example, he should encourage them, cause them to perform all actions by example. The wise person does not undermine the disciplines of others. Instead, he reinforces their engagement with dharma by his own actions. He helps them to continue to perform their duties, which maintains the stability of the society. And therefore it is a personal example he is setting forth there. Vidwan swayam tadeva avidusham karma yuktaha abhiyuktaha samajana. The knower himself, being engaged in action, should perform those very actions that the ignorant thinks as his duty to perform. Therefore, the wise person performs the same outward actions, but internally remains unattached. The wise must understand the capacity of others and avoid prematurely revealing the subtle doctrines. Guide them through example and must be based on adhikara of the each individual whom he is interacting with. The dangers of premature non-doership teaching ways that the self has nothing to do with this. Without preparation, they may conclude that I need not act, which will produce the negligence, moral discipline, the moral decline, and social disorder, etc. Therefore, the instruction should be gradual and knowing the level at which the adhikari is. At this stage, the chapter 3, we have refined the model of spiritual society. The ignorant performs the duty, the seeker practices the karma yoga, the knower acts without attachment, and the teacher guides without disturbing them. It's a skillful conduct among others. The jnani knows the self is actionless, yet acts carefully in the world because of his compassionate nature. I'll stop it here. We will take the 27th verse tomorrow. Prakriti kiriyamani karmani gunahi karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. That we'll do it tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Yes, thank you very much, Bindoji. Very deep manana on action versus wisdom and how the pedagogy very, very beautifully explained. I've opened the chat and hand raising for those who are interested in asking any follow-up questions. And as mentioned earlier, the links for all the previous rooms are available in the chat on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you can catch them as replays on Clubhouse. Over to you, Jesse. Hello.
Hello, namaskar, Bindo and Prakashji.
Namaste.
Oh, how are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I am very well. Things have been delightful here in practice, and I'm always looking to verify through my personal experience these.
That's the best way. That's the best way.
Yes, and I'm enjoying. And today felt like a deep, nourishing drink about compassionate, unattached compassion for the welfare of all and the welfare of the world. And I remember asking you a couple of weeks ago about this, and so I'm delighting because I've been patient and it's lovely. It's lovely. So I have a general question.
Go ahead.
Whenever something that I hear in teaching isn't quite verifiable in my experience or in my discernment, I kind of keep it around to play with it and to see where it lands, and I give it space. One of the things that I remember hearing is that karma yoga is to be done on a preliminary or in an order. In other words, that's first
Yes.
for the purification of the mind. But that's not what's happening in my experience, Bindo. What's happening for me is that I feel all of them. I feel the meditation aspect of the Raja, definitely the devotion comes in. And then, I feel so privileged to be able to study and to have an intellect that loves to learn. And it's a delight and a privilege for me. So is it okay that I think of all of them working together at the same time? Or should I concentrate more on one first and then the other? That's my question. Thank you.
Just see, there is no watertight compartment between these things. They all function in various degrees in our day-to-day life. But we should be able to identify them and approach them through the process of Karma Yoga, Jnana Nishtha, etc. That is, where we need to bring in that equanimity and where the attachment toward the fruit of action is to be abandoned or understood, that there is no need for me to be worried about the fruits of action as long as I am doing the action in the form of a sacrifice or an offering. When we do that way type of a thing, it may be out of the 100 actions we do in a day, maybe only for 3 or 10 or 5, 20 may require that approach. Whereas the rest of the things you would have already moved on from that because you are no more looking toward the fruits of action in those areas. That means in those areas you have already graduated. But there will be still some areas by default. This is what yesterday's class I differentiated between the Chitta Shuddhi and the Sattva Shuddhi. Both function simultaneously in us. Because the innate tendencies, which we call it as vasanas, or, tendencies towards certain direction in which we act, that will not be 100% eliminated for anyone initially. We need to do that gradually. That is why the karma yoga will be helpful when we are aware that that type of a approach is required for this action. But in other actions which you have already graduated, you will not be even thinking about the fruit of action. It would have become like an offering to the world or society or to the Lord. So we have to look from that point of view.
Thank you. So it seems to me like it's a fabric that is a tapestry or a fabric that's woven together. And when I am able to maintain awarenesses of these yogas, then they flow in and out based on my awareness and my experience, and I don't need to dictate a certain order or a certain time because they all live and are merged kind of together. Is that that's kind of what I'm coming to?
Okay.
That's where I'm going.
Got it. That's what I'm saying. You are the person who can know that, which will be where it will be applicable, where it will not be applicable. Externally, nobody can judge your internal intentions or internal approach through which you are doing the action. So you are your own judge, you are your own master.
Thank you, Bindo. Thank you, Bindoji. Blessings.
Thank you, Jesse. Namaste, Srini.
Namaste, Bindoji. One question is about the example. Like, for example, if we take the example of a 100-meter race, okay, the coach will not run the whole 100 meters and show, right? He generally, the way of coaching is slightly different. So in that case, is this Shrestha is also like a coach who is teaching people, because the guy who is participating, his thing is different and this coach is different, right? So
Yeah.
is that
Coach is different, and Jnani's approach of, giving the example to the world is internal. That's what I was telling Jesse. The internal approach for the actions which we are doing will be the difference between a Jnani and a Jnani. Externally, both will be doing their duties and responsibilities, performing. There cannot be any way in which you can make a difference between the two. While the person who is doing it with an internal knowledge that there is no doership or enjoyership, he will be at peace and will not be disturbed by the variance which will happen in the action. Whereas the Ajnani who is still attached to the fruits of action can get disturbed or affected by the variance in the action, and he may feel that the fruits may not come, that anxiety, etc. will be there. Whereas the Jnani will be at peace with himself all the time. So it is not like a coach for a sprint and the participants of the sprint. Here it is among the sprinters, the one who is knowing that he is partaking in the sprint just for the sake of running. He is not worried whether he is going to be the one who is getting the medal or not. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But either way, he is not worried about it. Whereas the person who is in the sprint, along with him, he wants the medal. So he will be the one who will be, putting all the effort and trying to reach the finish line the fastest. Anything hampering him in that, a slow start or a whistle not heard, the start message not heard properly, all those things can happen, affect him. Whereas the other person, he runs for the sake of running. That's the difference between the two. It is not the coach and the sprint. Between the two sprinters, the difference.
Yeah. And I think in some areas today it gave a feeling like it is just a sugar pill without no medicine, but still being prescribed to take kind of thing, right? Because some of those things that are told felt like that. Like, you take this pill, it is fine, or I will also take it along with you. Something like that. I don't know why it feels.
I don't know. It's not like that. It's really that is for giving a psychological, comfort level where the person feels that, okay, I am being given medicine. But actually, there is no need for a medicine. It's more of a psychological impact of that. But that is not the way. These examples are not like that. Here the example is that he lives along with us. The jnani lives along with us without, showing that, there is any difference in the activities which he will do and the activities which we will do. He will do the activities which are required as for his status and level of in duties and responsibilities. So others who are seeing him, because the rest of the time or when he is addressing, he will be talking the words of wisdom. With that, the jnani will be able to identify and see him. That is why he will be given a status of a jnani or a person to be followed upon. But the internal attitude, neither will he be showing, neither he can show it outwardly, or nor he is having any attitude with which he can show it to the others. Whereas the ajnani will be having that internal attitude and expectations of the fruits of action. That is the way in which these two are to be considered. Not that, a sugar-coated pill, placebo effect, etc.
Okay, thank you, Binduji. And one very small question. Now, when this example is being set, the dharmic aspect, right? Like, because he is like an embodiment of dharma. So, how is it like his own action automatically becomes dharmic, or because the rules, it's not that because of he read the scriptures that he is being dharmic? What sense? So, because with times the dharma kind of changes, right? The action. It need not be the old ones or something. So how is he capable to enact the dharmic actions, the Shrestha, without any guidance, or what is it? Is his conscience or something his guide, or how that is?
That is the word loka sangraha, the word, for the welfare of the society, his actions. If that is his prime mover, then he is directed towards moral duties, or what we call it as dharma. That will change according to the society's changing needs and the society's survival requirements. So the jnani also, during the period in which he is staying, he will be adhering to the loka sangraha, keeping in view what are the rules, the do's and don'ts for the society at that time. But he has neither the doership or enjoyership in his approach towards those do's and don'ts. He knows what is do's and don'ts due to the requirement of the social needs at that time. It is not the Vedic injunctions which we are talking about it. Even though Shankaracharya's period, he has used the words dharma, shastra, etc. That is not exactly that what today we have to read it as. But the word loka sangraha, then and now, has the same meaning, welfare of the society.
Okay, Binduji. I'll reserve many questions for Sunday. So for now, thank you for answering.
Thank you. Jot it down, otherwise you'll forget.
I'm also afraid. I have to jot it down. Yeah, from Monday I'm carrying questions.
Thank you, Srini. Namaste, dude.
Namaste, brother. Yeah, I'll just, I guess, go with the flow of that question and adapt to that. Could you discuss what in English is called skillful means, apaya or yana apaya, how a yani would operate through skillful means?
The jnani's skillful means is what is called, karmasu kaushalam is the word used by Krishna in this book, Gita. It is a skillfulness, not as a technical expertise or what you call dexterity in the action, etc. But it is the approach toward the action itself, where his skill is in the knowledge of who he is. Therefore, when he is approaching toward the actions, he knows that neither he is a doer nor he is an enjoyer, but his body, which is functioning in the society, in the world, is being an instrument, has to be used skillfully according to the nature of behavior of the things in the interaction. A fire will burn, water will wet. Like that, he will have, but he will not have a mentality of this is good for me, this is bad for me. That aspect won't be there in him. But he knows that the fire will be burning him, the water will be cold, the ice will be cold, etc. Those things, because those are all the things, nature's behavior, the property of the objects. He knows that. At the same time, he doesn't evaluate them for what it is. That is why the skillfulness is called the jnani skillfulness.
Beautiful. There's this quote that's is blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. What do you think about that?
Yeah, blessed, their heart, when they are purer, they see the God in their heart. In the sense that the otherness, what we are otherwise holding, is due to I am superior or I am separate from others. Therefore, I have to be different from others. This differentiation between me and others will vanish when my heart becomes purer. I am in a position to accept others as myself, or the same way. Treat your neighbor as yourself. When it is said that, it is this in the mind of Jesus when he said. That is exactly what every book is saying, that treat every being in the creation as a same creation. That is why in Advaita, we say that all ornaments made of the gold are nothing but gold. They may have different names and forms and shapes. Same way, all pots or dolls or anything made out of clay may have clay as their nature. Same way, everything which has created in this world has come from one single source. And therefore, we cannot be different in nature. We may have different names and forms, but in essential, the heart of everything, there is only one thing. And that one thing is the God from whom everything has come from. That is why the blessed will see the God in their heart.
You're beautiful, and just want to say thank you. Those questions were asked in exactly the way I anticipated them to be asked, responded to. Your understanding of hermeneutics and your interpretation of script and allowing others to see the meaning You're very skilled at that, and I just wanted to say thank you. I love you, and thank you for doing all these rooms.
Thank you, dude. Love you also. Thank you very much. Namaste, VK.
Thank you, Binduji. I have a small question. I think you have already so many questions so far, but but you have given good explanations. And it's my question is about two words that you have mentioned previously in your reply to both Jesse and Srinivas. It's about the use of internal and external. Where exactly is the line between internal and external? Although we may usually say that there is this internal aspect in us and there is this external, both in biological terms and in social terms, or in more clearly psychological terms. Sometimes I feel there is no line between them. So perhaps you could give me a little more explanation on it. Thank you.
Okay. The understanding has to be very clear that when we say internal, is what is experienced by the individual without involving anything outside his physical body. When we say that, we call as organs of action, like the hands, the eyes, the leg, etc. All the five sensory, five organs of action are deployed. We call it as external. But at the same time, when our internal psychological mind is functioning and responding, there is a knowledge what is happening inside us also to all of us. When anger comes, love comes, compassion comes, or sympathy comes, empathy comes, everything is not seen by others, but we know it. Therefore, the internal is what we only know, what others do not know. But external is the one which we also know, others also see it. That is what is called external.
Thank you for the explanation, Binduji. It's really helping. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Vich. Thank you, VK. Prakash?
Yes, thank you very much, Bindoji, for first conducting the deep manana and then all the Q&A. Excellent discussion, as usual. And heartfelt thanks to you. And just a reminder that the next 2 days are also going to be Gita classes continuing, room 13 and 14. We will not have just a reminder that we will not have the Friday open Bhagavad Gita discussion, as Bindoji has decided to continue with 5 classes per week, 8:30 p.m. IST. And on Sunday, you can come with more open questions on Advaita or any other questions you have. And the replays are available in Clubhouse and the 3 links shared, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. And hope to see you all tomorrow. Bindoji, over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash, Jesse, Srinivas, Dude, VK, and all of you who have been listening patiently.
Thank
We
you, Binduji.
will see you all tomorrow at the same time. We'll continue with the 27th verse. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night, Bindoji. See you.
Thank you, Prakash.